Hey everyone, welcome back to Design, Create, Inspire with me, Bryn Young. Today I want to talk to you about how something I never thought that I would ever get myself into, I honestly didn't even want to or thought that it was something that I would be interested in, but how that has actually changed so much for me and inspired me to be an even better architect. So today I'm talking about how teaching has actually made me a better designer and architect. And this is something I want to share with you because it's really important to know that sometimes life throws us unexpected routes. Sometimes we have a vision of where we want to go. We set our 10-year goals. We set all of our milestones that we're looking to reach. And then all of a sudden there's a curveball or something different thrown at us. And sometimes it's worth just saying yes to. Sometimes if you're feeling called to it, it's kind of like, that wasn't really what I was originally intending, but this is interesting. Let's see where this can go. So that's something that I have tried to do in my career is say yes to a lot of things. Say yes when it maybe feels outside my, scope. Say yes when it feels like, oh, I don't know if I can do that or if I would even be interested in it, but it could be something that could lead to something awesome. And that was teaching for me. And it's really important, especially in like a creative industry, or if you're wanting to start your own business and be an entrepreneur. Trying new things, going outside your comfort zone, and being okay with the idea that your path may shift a little bit is the best way to become the best version of yourself, right? Because sometimes we don't really know what the best version of ourselves is until we try those new things. All right, so a little background. When I was growing up, I always basically identified as a terrible teacher. Like if you were to ask me to teach you something, if there was another student in class and I was supposed to help them learn something, I always felt like I was a terrible teacher. I felt like I didn't have the words to say. I didn't know how to explain things well, so I didn't know how to walk them through stuff. I tend to be a little impatient, so I didn't take the time to, help them learn it. And so I always just felt like that's not what I want to do. I want to put my head down. I want to get through my work. I don't want to teach anything. I'm not a teacher. And that was something that, obviously, I don't know if maybe I was told at some point, or it's something that just I was telling myself all the time. Even when I started my business, it was just me for so long as a solopreneur because it's so much easier to just do it myself, not teach someone or not, have someone on board or anything like that. So it's really interesting because when I guess my first kind of experience with teaching in a way would be starting my YouTube channel. And my intention when I started this was absolutely not to teach. My intention was to share my story. My goal was to share a perspective of something that I had gone through in order to help other people. So when one of my first videos that I posted was all about my ARE experience. And my intention was to show others who are going through it that, they're not alone in terms of the failing, in terms of the weight of the emotions that go through the AREs, all that stuff. So it was just sharing my story. And then as I continued on with the YouTube videos, my goals have always been to do that, to help people who are starting a business, who want to start a design firm, who want to go into entrepreneurship, who want to be in the design industry, and essentially just give them the tools and the tips and the experiences that I had just to make their life a little bit easier. Now, that was what I was telling myself the whole time is I'm just sharing my experience so that their lives can be easier. And give them something that I would have loved and wanted and needed as I was going through my journey. And then, as I was doing that, I started getting these emails from people, and emails like, hey, your video here really helped me out, and you're such a great teacher, you communicate really well, and all this stuff. And I thought, great teacher? Like, oh, okay, I guess I am sort of teaching in a way. And I think I like it. Like, I like teaching other people, things that I've learned and helping them out. And it was just I guess I just didn't view teaching in that way for some reason. So the more I was getting these emails, the more I was finding that this was actually something I was really passionate about, and I was really excited. And then the funniest thing happened, where I got a email from one of my old professors from my college who asked if I wanted to come in and teach. And they had seen some of my YouTube and saw that I was, teaching essentially, and thought that I would be a good fit and invited me in. And again, I never in my never in my life, I guess, would have assumed that I would be back at my old college teaching. If you would have told me that while I was in school, no way. I would have said, yeah, right, like they'll ever ask me to come back here and teach. But they did. And I found that I did really like it. I loved inspiring these younger professionals, into this design industry and asking questions and teaching them about all this stuff that I have spent so many years working on. And I found that as I was doing that, and as I've been teaching, and as I've been trying out this new portion of my career, essentially, it has led me to be such a better architect. And I know it's like, how can teaching make you a better architect? I think that I was always under the impression, that term, like, those who can't do teach, which is like, I'm sorry if you're a teacher. I don't believe it, but I learned that early on, and I think I just kind of stuck with that knowledge. But so anyways, so when I was in school and I was teaching I was teaching a freshman class, college, so young kids, like some ages ranged, but there were some straight out of high school. And I realized that they were also teaching me. So by being a teacher, now I'm learning all of this stuff. And I realized that putting myself out there, trying something different, doing something that maybe was a little uncomfortable at first, has catapulted me to this next level of my career. But I encourage you, I say all this because not just to talk about my experience, but just to encourage you to try something new. It doesn't have to be teaching, but trying something different that you maybe would not have normally done, and get outside of just your standard, because it can bring you to a new level of career, of success, of fulfillment, of maybe it even changes what your trajectory is. So I want to give you just 4 little things of how this teaching has really made me a better architect. So the first one is, I realized that I need to practice what I preach. So when I was teaching these students, and what I'm teaching, what I talk about all the time on YouTube, what I teach in my Mind Over ARE course, what I'm teaching in my study plan mini course, all of these things that I'm teaching, I'm constantly reminded and realize that I need to also practice what I preach. And there will be sometimes, I teach a lot of the mindset in Mind Over ARE that doesn't just, it's not just applicable for the AREs, but it's applicable for life. And there will be times where I'm talking to my husband and I'm like, okay, I need to listen to what I said in module 2 and just, reframe this. And, I'm constantly trying to practice what I preach. And so it has definitely made me, a better critical thinker. It's made me better at stopping and knowing that I know the right answers, and sometimes I fall back and have to kind of, pick up on that. And then also with architecture and not just the mindset side, but, telling my students that this is going to go into the next one, but telling my students things like, you need to continue sketching. Just keep sketching. Have it be messy. Have it be dirty. It's okay. The more you do it, the better you'll get. And that's something I have to practice what I preach, right? So that goes into number 2 is keep sketching. I would tell my students, so I had them have a sketchbook, and I encouraged them to, the messier, the quicker drawings, the better. Do not sit down and do one 5-hour sketch once a month. Do a little doodle, do a little, 5-second sketch, but just keep sketching and keep doing it and keep doing it, and don't have that perfectionism, because that is what's going to make you such a great architect and such a great sketcher. The more you do it, the rougher you do it, the more practice you get, the better you'll get. And that's something I have to always remind myself. Just keep sketching. Don't perfect it. I will tell you, there's so many, I used to love to draw pastel, and I love portraits. And there's so many started portraits that I would do that I wouldn't finish, because I would start them and then I would say, oh, it's not very good. And then I would give up on it. Well, yeah, it wasn't very good because I gave up on it. It would have been good if I just kept going. And so I have to practice what I preach and keep sketching so that I can keep getting better and, keep practicing. So these both are really important lessons that I have essentially taken as I have taught, that have made me a better architect and are making me a better architect. And then the third one is keep learning. I am such a proponent of never stop learning. I'm always learning. I'm still taking courses on business or, sketching or all sorts of things. I'm always watching a master class. I'm always learning. I'm reading. I know that life is a continuous learning process, and it's so important to never feel like you have it all. You will never know it all. And if you get to a point where you're telling yourself that you know it all, or there's nothing left to learn, it's a really sad point and time to reevaluate. So going through and teaching these students and teaching on YouTube and teaching my mindset courses and all these things, I realized that there's still so much to learn and still so much to teach. And it's really exciting. It's there's something exciting to be prepared for or to look out for. And then the fourth one, the thing that teaching has made me be a better architect, is ask quality questions. So the quality of answers we get is based on the quality of questions we get. And the best answers I could give to students were the ones that to the students that asked really quality questions. And I have discovered that the better questions I ask, the better, results I get, the better answers I get, the more quality information I get. And so practicing that in anything is something huge that I continually try to do. Now, this works really well in architecture because we can ask ourselves questions like, okay, well, why, especially with something like a detail, for example, why are we designing that detail there? If that detail is typically done that way, is there another way that we can do it? And just going through these series of questions, it helps us be able to think more critically, think more creatively, and then design more uniquely. And so that is something I am continually trying to do, is just ask good quality questions. And yeah, I think that is something that I've had to learn to kind of learn how to do, because I am not the biggest question asker. I am more like, I don't want to waste my time asking a question. Like in school, I'm just going to listen. I'll figure it out on my own. I'll get it done. My husband and my daughter are the biggest question askers ever. So many questions. And while I can find it sometimes frustrating, like, stop asking questions, just figure it out. I realized that they actually become more intelligent and find out much more information because they're asking these quality questions. So there's this fine line between figuring it out on your own and doing it and taking action, and asking questions. So there is this, you have to make sure that you're balancing both. But you want to make sure that if you are asking questions, you're asking really quality questions. And so what that means, depending on what you're doing, is just, critically thinking about, how can I ask this in a way to get a really good answer? So those are the 4 ways that teaching has really helped me become a better architect, really practicing what I preach, knowing that I need to keep sketching and just keep trying and lose that perfectionism. The 3rd is really keep learning, always keep learning, and then ask quality questions. So I encourage you to try something new. Maybe that's going out and teaching someone. If you're studying for the AREs, for example, the best way that you can retain information and you can really understand it in a meaningful way is through teaching. So if you are studying, I encourage you to go out and try to teach someone maybe one of the lessons that you're learning. Or if you are working on a business and you are, developing a new business plan, just try to go teach someone what it's like to put together a business plan or explain it to someone. It's really fascinating how teaching can open up your brain in a different way and make you better at whatever you are doing. So that is all I have for you today. I hope that inspired you to try a little something new. Thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, you do all the things. And if you are listening over on the podcast, please make sure you rate and review us. That is really meaningful and helps it go a long way. But thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next week. Stay curious.